All right, so I'm here today with a very special guest, Calgary's own, emerging in the R&B in the R&B section. Ruben Young, how you doing today, homie?
I'm good, bro. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for joining. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Much appreciated. So we'll get right into it. So Black Lives Matter protests. I seen you at the protest. I had the privilege of hearing you speak. It was amazing. I was very moved by it. I remember you saying that was the most nervous you've ever been, and hearing that from an artist that, performs in front of hundreds, thousands of people, you don't expect to hear that. So let's dive into that. Why did you feel the need to say something? And why were you feeling that way? What made you nervous about telling your story?
Word. Well, I just got home. I got home like 2-3 days after George Floyd, and I hopped on it. The protests kind of made the news, and people were talking about it. And I hopped on the internet just to look and learn about what was going down and what the rhetoric was here. And I was just so pissed to see so much ignorance in the comments, so much both passive aggressive and blatant racism and ignorance to how important this is to human beings in the city. And I just got vexed, and I hopped on Instagram, and I promised myself this year I would be less. It's like less fear, more love. Like I would hold back. In the past, I've held back how I feel because I'm like, I don't know if I'm there yet. I always like match myself as a human, my success to my music career success. And since I'm still growing, I'm like, I haven't earned the right to say something. People don't want to listen to me. But this year, I'm like, no, well, I'm a human being. Like I'm supposed to speak my mind and share how I feel. And this, anyway. So yeah, so I hopped on, vexed, let my followers know, and especially the people here in Calgary, because I know that's where a ton of my base is. That like, yo, this is a real thing in Calgary. Like racism is here as hell, and we need to pay attention and make noise about it. And Ava, the amazing 19-year-old who put together the protest in Kensington that day, she just hit me on the DMs and asked me to speak based on what I had been saying on Instagram. And dude, I got that message, and I sat there for a good half hour, texted my mom, texted my brother about it, just thought, I was like, is this my place at all? Like I had, and I asked her, first thing I asked her was like, okay, who else is speaking? If I'm the only speaker, then no, not because I'm nervous, but because my voice shouldn't be the loudest. Like there's a lot of stories that need to be told right now that are way more important than mine. But she said, and especially Black stories, like from the mouths of the struggle and from the experiences. So yeah, but yeah, no, she had a great lineup, and she just said she loved my voice because it's different, but it's still relevant. And then yeah, I was just I think it's so different than getting up and singing a song. It's so different, which can be nervous too, but it's a responsibility that you bear when you decide you want to speak your mind on something that is this critical and this important, that you get it right and you say how you truly feel. You say it in a way that connects, and you do it from the right way, because at the end of the day, like I said, I'm an ally. Like I'm not Black. So who am I speaking to? Like it's all of that. I really needed to understand that before I got up there. So yeah, it was hella nervous, man.
I bet, bro. I bet. Yeah, I would have been nervous too, but you did a great job. You killed it. Like I said, it was very inspiring and great to hear. But let's talk about some of the challenges that you face personally growing up, because it's not something I ever really thought about until you brought it up. Your fair skin tone. So did you have troubles fitting in with the Black community, the white community? What are some of the challenges that you face growing up, kind of being in between?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for asking that, man. For me, it was always weird. So my brother is we're half brothers. So his dad is full black. Our mom is Caribbean. She's from Trinidad, and my dad is white. But my dad wasn't around, and my brother pretty much raised me. He's 11 years older than me, so I was raised in a home with a Trini girl, with a Trini mom, and a black man raising me. But I'm this skin color with a Jew fro, and it was weird for me because like black culture has always been like what I consumed. Like we had Motown playing in my house. My brother played basketball. He was like one of the greatest basketball players ever to come out of the city. So we're a basketball family. I went to school wearing a double XL Kobe jersey with my giant Jew fro and listening to Luther Vandross on my Discman. But then I go to school, and I grew up in Marteloup. My mom wanted to raise me in a neighborhood that I didn't need to struggle. So like, I don't talk about this much, but we rented a house for 23 years. We never owned because my mom wanted me to live in the right neighborhood. So we grew up in Marteloup, so I was safe, and I could have the privileges that I do. And like, I love her so much for that, and I can never repay her for that, because my brother had it super hard when he was younger. The money struggle was real. The single mom struggle was real. Being a young black boy in Calgary was tough. And she didn't want any of that stuff for me. So that being said, most of my social circle was white. Like, all my friends were white just based on who was around me. And so I have what I learned at home and like how I felt and how my brother and his friends talked. You'd hear Wagwan all the time, and then I go to school and be like, yo, Wagwan, and they're like, what are you even saying, dude? And then I got weird. I got like self-conscious about it. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I got to get used to this. Everybody plays hockey, and everybody likes. It was weird in junior high. People liked like AC/DC and like classic rock. I was like, what is this? So it was that part was interesting for me growing up. And I mean, as I got older, moved to Toronto, it's like whites are the minorities in downtown Toronto. Yeah. Like it's a mix, and the culture is just, it's really made me want to dig deeper into my Trini roots and into all of my roots and just learn more and be more proud of what I come from and all that. Right. So
that's what's up, man. Yeah, we'll talk about your move to Toronto a little later, but that's so interesting that you have, different perspectives from different cultures and, trying to take the black culture and, integrate it into the white culture. That's such an interesting story. But I want to know, how do you feel about people in positions of power? Do you feel like it's mandatory that they should speak up on these Black Lives Matter issues? Or do you feel like, people just because they're in a position of power doesn't mean that they have to do something or say something about it? I'd love to get your take on that.
It's a great question. It depends on the person, I think, because to say that everybody has to have the same reaction or make the same move, I don't think that that's fair, because a difference between my brother and I, for example, is like his resources in the city are like, his relationships are deep. So he's leveraged his relationships, and he just had a meeting with the executive chief of police yesterday to share some perspective as a black man. And as a basketball coach to thousands of kids in the city, especially kids in the Northeast, kids that go through it of all colors, he wanted to share some perspective. And it was a dope talk, and now it's led to more conversations. So if he didn't post once about it, who cares? He's out there making his impact. He's making his impact every day. But what I think is, especially for everybody else, for the allies, for everybody who does not walk in those same shoes, it's our job to, again, like I said in my speech, reflect on our experience with racism, reflect on who we were in those moments and how we want to be better, and how the people around us need to be held accountable for it. Because once you reflect on your experience, then you're going to feel something. You're going to feel motivated to perhaps make an impact in that way. But then to take it a step further, because you asked about people in positions of power. People in positions of power, again, it all depends on the person, but let's take somebody like Brett Wilson, for example. He's one of those guys that, growing up in the city, I went to business school and I looked up to a lot of people, including him. And he's like that loud. He wants to be the loudest guy in the room. He wants to have his voice heard on every topic and go flagrant on Twitter, and often enjoyed it, And then when everything has happened and transpired over the last week or so, I looked at his Twitter in hopes that a white man in that position would say something, would say the right thing to his community and to the people who listen to him, because I think that's his responsibility. He decided to be the guy with the loudest voice. Have the loudest voice now. Speak to the people who are oblivious to racism, who think it's not a big deal in the city, and who are blatantly racist because they listen to him. He has a voice. This guy decides to say instead, he decides to say that Mayor Nenshi won the election because he played the Northeast race card. And then in the same day he decides, which he's apologized for, but
okay. Good.
And then in the same day he tweeted, rioting is bad, peaceful protesting is good, but let's talk about the tangible ways to make the world a better place, with a picture that reads, pick up a piece of trash when you see it, hold the door open for somebody, tip your waiter, let someone into your lane in traffic.
He's completely missing the point, man.
Like, I was genuinely shocked. And to that, as an example, I just typed up a letter that I'm going to send his way, because I've known him, I've seen him, been around him for a long time, and I'm personally cheesed. Like, I personally find it unacceptable. And I don't think it's too late. I think that a guy like that can still have impact. This, like everybody is saying, this battle does not end this week, this month, this year. It's steady. But someone like him could make a world of difference to young entrepreneurs, young professionals that are Black and minority in this city. He can make a huge impact to everybody.
Definitely. Yeah. So, yeah, my take on that, especially for Black people, I do think, while I don't think it's mandatory, I do think it's very, very important to speak up, and to let your voice be heard, because the way I see it is like, there's a golden opportunity for us. We literally, I don't think there's ever been a time in our lives where like the whole world is listening to minorities and Black people, and they want to be educated on what it's like to be a Black person and racism. And I don't know how long this period is going to last for, where we do have their attention. People are literally not posting on social media to donate their time towards Black Lives Matter. So, while I don't think it's mandatory, I think it's very, very important and very, very crucial for people with voices to say something. Try to educate people. Like, there's a lot of people in the Black community that complain about white people, and how they don't think racism is real, or whatever they want to complain about. So I'm like, now is your opportunity to educate them. Educate all races, right? But yeah, that's just my take. I'd love to hear your opinion on the rioting and looting, because there's kind of two camps, right? There's some that say peaceful protests haven't worked in the past, and we need to take more aggressive action, and that's the only way change is going to come. But there's other people that say that the rioting and looting is only hurting other businesses, and there's no real impact that it's having. Did you have any perspective on that?
I do. I think that protests speak volumes. They do. Like, historically, they have been a centerpiece for the public voice, and I think that they're important. I think that people getting out and for a movement, especially the power of it seeing the videos in LA, seeing the videos in Paris, seeing the videos everywhere. The next thing you know, Calgary, it's powerful. And it reminds people that they're not alone and that their voice isn't the only one that's wants to be heard and needs to be heard. I think it's super important. I don't think looting is the move. And I think that a lot of the looting, it's pretty easy to see that the people looting aren't necessarily all victims of racism. I think it's people trying to take advantage of a situation and anarchists and all that garbage. Like, it's a pretty obvious thing. I don't see how that helps destroying businesses locally and everything. If you're mad, I look when the Vancouver Canucks won the cup, they rioted pretty damn hard, and it seldom does good. But so I guess the word rioting has an asterisk next to it. But with that being said, people are mad, and they're not mad about nothing. They're mad about police. Yeah. Like, they're mad about a absolutely shattered system. So what are you supposed to go out there and like hold hands and sing Kumbaya and hope it gets better? That's not how it moves either. So if you're mad, you got to be mad. But
it's a lot of built up emotion and frustration, because George Floyd obviously wasn't the first person to be to be treated like that by police, right? So I feel like a lot of people, they don't know how to release it, and it's the only way that they can think of. They just want their voices to be heard. So not that I'm in support of the rioting and looting, but I do understand and empathize with them. Even for myself, there's just been a lot of built up frustration and emotions, and I've had to work on learning how to channel that into something positive, something constructive, something that will help others. But yeah, I do definitely sympathize and empathize with all our brothers and sisters down in the States. But let's change the tone a little bit. Let's talk about your music career that's popping off. You're a rising star in the music industry. Love your music. Glad you're from Calgary. You're repping us.
Let's go.
So how did you get into music originally?
Oh, shoot. I got into music super naturally, man. I always loved it. I sang around the house. My dad had a marginally successful music career. But singing is in my blood. But honestly, it was nurtured when my mom was sending me to voice lessons just because I liked it. And then I got into bands, and I did Canadian Idol when I was 16, and that was encouraging. And then, next thing you know, I'm writing songs. And when I finished university, I got a degree in business and finance, and I just knew that my calling was elsewhere.
Yeah. So was that tough for you? Because you worked as an investment banker, correct?
Yeah. I worked in private wealth.
Okay. So how was that? Like, working in that industry, did you just like always felt some sort of calling towards music? Like, was it tough for you to sit there and work through that while your mind was elsewhere?
Definitely. I mean, I definitely had a passion for finance as well. I was taught to go to school to add to your tool belt, so that you can apply those lessons and all of those skills to whatever you want to do with your life. That's the way I've always looked at it. So I never knew if I was going to be an iBanker. There was a point where I was like, I want to go and make some money. I want to make some damn money with my life, for sure. But when I was working in finance, I worked for amazing people. I learned how impactful you can, how much of an impact you can make when obviously you're making money. The guys that I worked for ran a foundation called the Big Give Project. So they supported underprivileged student athletes in Calgary from marginalized communities. And that was sick. Like, we raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to put kids into sports. Wow. And it was amazing. So I wasn't stuck at like a super boring desk finance job, twiddling my thumbs thinking about music. But while I was in it, I had bands on the side. I was writing music on the side. I started my 50-day idea. Um,
Yeah. Let's talk about that because that's really
yeah,
interesting. I read about that your 50 Days of Summer campaign.
yeah,
Where did the idea come from?
dude. You know what? A friend of mine was just like, I was challenged when I finished business school because I was like, how do I pursue music? And business at the same time. And he was like, I don't know, do 100 days of shows. I was like, what? I don't even play an instrument, bro. How am I going to do that? But I turned it into 50 and did like, you know, social media pop-ups. I did pop-up shows, did lots of collabs and videos and stuff like that. And I got community support for it. I got like free beer for the summer and a radio station sponsored it. So that made me want to turn it into a festival the next year. And that was the biggest headache of my life for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
But
The old 50-day
I guess I'm
music
glad you
festival.
did it though.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It was experience of a lifetime, that's for sure. Like a ton of learning lessons that you can't trade for anything, right?
Yeah, that's wild. So with your 50 Days of Summer campaign, were all your shows in Calgary or you traveled to different places?
No, for at the time it was just in Calgary.
Oh,
And yeah, it was like a different trying to put on the community. So like it was a different Calgary artist in a different Calgary venue every day for 50.
wow.
So
That's
it was
very
a lot.
impressive, man. That is a lot. 50 days straight. That's intense. That's intense.
Yeah, it's too much, bro. Too much.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about your move to Toronto. So you decided to move to Toronto. What was the deciding factor behind that? Because I know a lot of people, even outside of the music industry, from Calgary, they end up in Toronto. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's the same all over Canada, but I've seen a pattern in Calgary specifically. So why is that? Do you feel like it's just not possible to be a successful artist in Calgary?
I don't know if I would say that because the internet's wild right now. Anything can happen. But it's the difference to me between Toronto and Calgary is history. Like Toronto has generations of artists, especially in soul, R&B, hip hop, pop, in my genres and culture that have done it and had success for years. And you can you grow up in the culture, you grow up in the scene, you learn from those artists. You talk about what those artists do. That's a part of the come up. And I think that when you can see it, it seems a lot more realistic, and you there's a path laid for you. And I think one of the struggles for me coming from here, making the music that I do, was like there aren't very many artists who have come before me in my genre. So it was really hard to collaborate, to write with people, to you know grow. I think that was the biggest thing. And I started traveling to write music in 2017. And then in 2018, I was gone all for like 5 months. I was on road. Like I would leave Calgary every Sunday and fly to Toronto, Montreal, LA, London, Nashville, Vancouver, one of those cities for the week. I would write 3 times a day, all co-writing, just trying to get my chops up, meeting producers, trying to build relationships outside of the city. And then I'd come home on Friday, bartend Friday, Saturday, make my money for the week, and then go out and do it again.
Oh,
And that was from doing that, it opened my eyes to how much is out there, how much industry is out there, how many incredible producers and writers are out there doing amazing things. And by being in that atmosphere, it allows you to grow so much. And I don't know if it was just maybe where I grew up in the city, because there are artists from here doing their thing right now, but I just wasn't in that scene here, so I needed to get it elsewhere.
yeah. No, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Just being immersed in that culture, having big artists, like Drake, Tory Lanez, Sincerely Toby, whoever it is, they paved the way, and I feel like there's just a lot more resources, and those kind of people are just like a lot more accessible out there. Do you miss Calgary a lot when you're out in Toronto, or is Toronto like your new home now?
Oh man, I mean, Calgary's always home. Like the feeling of home is here. My family's here. My memories are all here. So I think this will always be home to me. But Toronto's growing on me for sure. For sure. Toronto is a vibe. It's just
I feel you, man. I feel you. Toronto, it's a different beast.
Different beast. Different beast. I'm really happy and lucky to be there right now. And who knows where this thing will take me next, because probably be a nomad for a while.
That's what's up, man. Nothing wrong with that. So who are some of your musical inspirations growing up?
Oh shoot! Well, it was definitely soul to start. It was Marvin Gaye, Luther Vandross, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind and Fire, Kool and the Gang, Raphael Sadiq. Like I loved soul music first and foremost, and then got into hip hop and pop music. And probably my biggest influences are, Raphael Sadiq, Justin Timberlake, James Brown, Marvin Gaye, Amy Winehouse. Anderson .Paak was a huge, like, for the last 5 years, him and Mac Miller have been like huge influences. Every time I get asked this, it's like, I know half of them just leave my brain. And then as soon as it's done, I'm like, no, I forgot John Legend. Like, John Legend's a huge one for me.
Yeah, I feel you. We'll save it for the next podcast, and you'll come up.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Do you have any rituals before you perform? Anything quirky you do? Any superstitions? Some people like to have a quarter pounder before basketball games, but what you like to do?
that was like the Shaq program. Actually, my roommate used to like, it'd be McDonald's every game day. No, I honestly, I actually just call my mom. I talk to my mom before every show and just like try to share those experiences with her. I think that's like the toughest part about not being home, is I'm super tight with my mom. So I like for her to be in it with me, you know?
Yeah, just like calm your nerves and settle you down a little bit, get you comfortable.
Yeah, it's just, there's something nice about, I want to share those moments with her, because she's done so much for me, and I would not be able to do this if I wasn't so lucky to have her, right? So I want her to be a part of the moments and all that. So yeah, that, and I do these ridiculous vocal warm-ups. So if anybody hears them, they're like, yo, are you good, man? Are you scream crying in the corner right now?
That's a joke. So do you just wait till nobody's around and then you do your vocal warm-ups, or?
Yeah, you got to find the stairwell. You got to find the empty stairwell. That's always the play.
Nice. Well, whatever works, man. Clearly it's working, you know.
Exactly.
So just make sure there's no cameras around when you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Dope. So what do you got? What do you got cooking for 2020? You got anything in the works?
Yes, man, I do. I've been grinding since November. I've had my head down writing. I'm like a good 80, 85 songs deep now. Yeah. Like tons of work. And I just really found my sound, man. Like, I put out Dream State, my EP, in October, and that was the product of years of writing. That was my first project. It was just like, here's a bit of like my influences. Here's a bit of everything that I do. Super proud of that. But now I know what I do.
Yeah.
I know how I do it and why I do it. And so the process has just gotten a lot deeper for me. And I think the music's just on a whole nother level. So I'm getting ready to start dropping it soon, man. I'm super excited, but going through the motions, like being an independent artist isn't easy, right? So
Gotcha. Yeah. That's definitely a difficult route and an admirable route. It seems like more and more artists are actually going that direction. Independent artists. What was the deciding factor for you? Why did you want to go that route?
Well, I mean, starting out, everybody has to hit that road, and when the right opportunities come up for a partner, then you weigh them out and consider if they're the right ones. And for me, I've always wanted to build enough steam that my business has leverage to enter the partnership in a way that I'm not going to get duped.
Yeah.
I want to put myself in a position to be successful in the long run. I love the idea of being able to have creative control, and ultimately, like, if I give that up, I want to be giving it up to a team that really rides for it and really gets the vision and can help get it there. And I know that a lot of artists kind of miss out on that, and you take risks when you enter a deal. But yeah, so it's all about when the right one comes. But for now, I'm grateful that I have such a great team. My manager, my mixing engineer, like PR, our whole team is really strong, and I'm fired up for what we can do this year.
That's great, man. Hey, I'm fired up too. I can't wait. Can't wait to get to 80 tracks.
That's it. Well, and like Tory Lanez went off about it the other day. Like, he owns his masters. Like, owning your work, your assets is super important.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think people have to like really sit down. Like, honestly, I've made spreadsheets on spreadsheets about my business and trying to understand it as well as I can. So if somebody's going to give me a deal, I know exactly, or offer me a deal, I know exactly what it looks like, why it makes sense, why it doesn't. You know what I mean? I think everybody's got to do that work if you're going to be putting yourself in that position.
For sure. No, I agree with you 1,000%. So important to educate yourself. I'm not in the music industry, but I hear lots of stories about artists getting duped and getting swindled by these big record labels. And, I hate to see that, because, these artists, they put their heart and soul into their craft, and they should be fairly rewarded for what they do, So I always find it like very admirable when I see independent artists grinding, doing their own thing. Just wondering, do you have any words of advice for any aspiring artists that maybe are going through tough times, or have some self-doubt, or don't think they can make it, or don't know the right next step to take?
That's a great question. And always, I don't know which one piece I would give, but I'll tell you this, it's never going to go away. All of those feelings that you're having right now, those lows, I'm not sure if I can do this, or if I can make it, or if I'm good enough, or is this sound good enough? Is this branding good enough? Is all of it? I don't think it's ever going to go away. It's the biggest artists in the world are constantly reinventing themselves and asking themselves the same questions. So you got to be okay with that. And if you're not, then this might not be for you. And I don't mean that. Sorry, my mom was calling me.
No worries.
It's the second time today I've had a Zoom call and my mom calls me. That's my other advice. Call your mom. No,
sure.
Exactly. No, you gotta build the support systems to get you through those times, though. Like, real talk, it's not as easy as like get over it or it's not for you. It's like you need foundations and support systems around you to get through those lows. But you got to ask yourself why you're doing it. And if your why is strong enough and you feel like this is your purpose and you got something to say and you're making the most genuine music that you can, then you know what that feels like, and you know how hard to defeat that is. And the longer you do this, I think the more that becomes your reality, and you know that the lows are just the lows.
Yeah.
I'll get through those, but those aren't my reality. My reality is like, I'm made for this shit. Yeah. And then, I mean, I also reach out to people and ask questions. Like, it feels like a very lonely journey sometimes, because it's your thoughts, your songs, your ideas, and it feels isolating, especially when you're early in the game and you don't have a team yet. But reach out to people and ask questions. Like, I have been so lucky to have mentors and like big brothers and sisters in this game that have taught me how to keep going and how to think and how to stay with it. And people want to teach, you know what I mean? And just as much as you want to learn. So don't be afraid of that. 'Cause it opens doors too. It's like the old ask a man ask a man for a fish, or ask a man how to fish, and you fish for life, right?
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Something like that. Close enough.
Close enough. Cool, cool. So, yeah, great words, great advice. Really appreciate that. I'm sure that'll be impactful for a lot of artists out there, even people that aren't artists. You know, whatever business you're in or whatever goal you're trying to achieve. That's great advice. So, as we both know, there's a lot going on in the world right now. There's a lot of negativity, a lot of anxiety between coronavirus, Black Lives Matter, just the everyday struggle, everyday grind, people not having enough money coming in. So I always like to end things on a positive note. Just wondering if you have any positive words you'd like to share with the city, with the nation, anybody in the world listening right now. Just any words of encouragement during these times. I know you've shared a lot already with at the Black Lives Matter protests, but I'm sure you can spare a few more words.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think this would also be like the other piece of advice I could give to artists too, which is like, you have to be kind to yourself. Like, love yourself. Like, we're pretty incredible creatures. We've got all of these multiple facets to us and things that make us us. And that's what's so special. That's why something like the color of our skin should never restrict us from being able to let that shine. It's hard enough to shine sometimes for anybody. We're all going through it. And, it starts with yourself. And I think when it's as challenging as it is right now, half of us are locked up in our houses in quarantine, and half of us are feeling the suppression of everything that's going on right now. Just remind yourself how dope you are and how special you are, and work at that and write it down and keep it moving. I mean, that's kind of what's gotten me, I think, through all of my lows, is, like I said, the support system that I have and the constant you got to be like your own biggest fan. And is that going to fix the world's problems? I don't know. But at the end of the day, we got to walk out our doors and do our thing and find a way to get through the day. And love yourself.
For sure. That's what's up, man. That's great advice. And, I couldn't agree more. It's such a blessing to even just be alive. My team, we recently wrote a blog article titled 3 Reasons Why You Matter. And upon doing some research, the chances of someone actually, like a human being born, are 1 in 400 trillion.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, people don't even realize how much of a miracle it is to even just be alive. So anytime I'm stressed or, I have a lot of anxiety, I always just try to take a step back and, just take everything in. Like, this is such a blessing, everything, the good and the bad. Just take it for what it is and, try to make the most of it. But
100, man.
Yeah.
And to like somehow maintain the focus of where you want to be. I think that's got to be the driver that gets us through. Why are we in this game? What are we in it for? Yeah. And it's crazy because it truly helps you identify what your next step is. Because that's always where the anxiety really kicks in. It's like, or that's what the anxiety can get in the way of knowing how to move forward. And like, for example, with myself going through all of this Black Lives Matters and the madness of the last few weeks, I kind of had a chance to reflect on how I want to truly help in the long run. Like, yes, I can share my words and use my voice, but what about my making an impact in the real world outside of my voice? And I thought about myself as a son of a single immigrant mother with no generational wealth to help us to get through, with tons of sacrifice and struggle to get to this point. I want to help people like me, people like my brother. And so I'm working on exactly that right now. I want to find a way to support the youth going through that same struggle that a lot of us went through, so that we all have a chance to swing the way we want to swing. You want to do music, you want to create a music festival, you want to create a media marketing company, here's some help. And that's and like I said, that just comes from asking myself what's important to me. And yeah, so that's what's up.
That's great, man. It's been a pleasure. Again, thanks so much for the time. I'm going to have to catch up with you again, probably after you drop your next album.
Yes, that'd be so dope.
For sure. All right, bro. Take care of yourself.
Okay, man. You too. Thank you for the time.